Welcome to the AI First Business Podcast with Tina Yazdi, where we show you how companies, teams, and leaders are turning AI hype into ROI. Pierre, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So this episode kind of came together serendipitously. You play tennis and regularly beat with one of my colleagues. And I was doing a series of episodes with Revolut alumni founded companies, a lot of which are based here in London. And I kind of found my way and we connected. Can you tell us a little bit about, who you are and what you do at Revolut?
Sure. So I'm Pierre. My background is in data science and consulting, but I've been working in product for quite a few years now, almost 6 of which have been at Revolut, where I'm now head of product and product marketing for Revolut Business. Outside of work, I'm a proud father of 2. I'm passionate about wine, and I really like tennis, but I'm not actually that good at it. That's me in a nutshell.
Dimitri's begs to differ. One of the things I noticed that you shared, kind of going back to your childhood, it sounded like you had this dichotomy between left brain, right brain, if I can say it like that. You were quite logical and analytical, which is traits I think Revolut is very famous for. But you also had this creative side. Can you maybe walk us through a little bit like what that was like growing up and when you started to notice like these two sides of you and trying to figure out how to bring them together?
Sure. So, I always loved to build or create things. So when I was younger, I would did this weird setup where I could very lazily open my door from my desk as a string, or I built like a really rudimentary vehicle to take the bins out instead of.
You have a background in data science. Is that what you studied in university?
No, at uni, I was studying math to begin with. Mostly because that's the only thing I could do without working too hard. And I was quite young. I was 17 when I went to university. And back then, my priority was more to have fun, I suppose, than to get hard knowledge. But I fell in love with the university and decided to go for it. And that's why I picked math. And it was quite fun. I was doing very pure maths. I wasn't that good at the analytical side of things. There's really the pure maths that I liked, not the applied
like imaginary numbers kind of.
Yeah, this sort of things, Galois theory, liked, could do is a better way to express it. Mm-hmm. And after my maths degree, it was right when the finance bubble hit and everyone I was studying with would go into finance, and suddenly it wasn't exactly the sexiest job anymore. And I think it did conflict a fair bit with this whole creativity side of my life that I wanted to have. And I decided, contrary to the recommendation from my tutors, not to do further math studies and go into research or these sort of things, but try and become a film director. Sadly, I lacked talent and or courage to make it happen. And I just panicked a bit and decided to do a business degree in a business school instead, which led me to work in film financing afterwards. So I did a bit of film production. I was still doing movies on the side as a director, a couple of festivals here and there, but nothing serious. But it was enough to keep me happy and excited. And then I just wanted to help make sure others could do films properly with the right financing. So that's why I jumped to that sort of
So you didn't abandon the film director dreams?
I abandoned mine, but tried to make sure others would be placed in the right positions to do it. Because my thesis at the end of my business school was around film financing and how to make it sustainable in a world where this is no longer what people watch TV for.
Yeah. What is there like a memorable project that you were involved in during that time of your life?
As a film producer, I'll pick one that doesn't really reflect well on me, but I managed to sneak my name in the credits as in French, it was responsable bien-être, so well-being rep. Mm-hmm. And a nickname of mine, so I just randomly managed to squeeze that in despite all of the rounds of validations. It was my proudest moment as a producer. No, there were some, but I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but there was a crazy moment where very early into my internship as a film producer, and the exec producer was away, and I was asked to just proofread the scripts for a TV series.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand the plot. I was getting completely lost, completely confused. Someone I thought was dead in the previous episode suddenly came back and was talking to someone else. They didn't seem to be upset at each other. I can't remember exactly the details, but some bits
It
I was
wasn't
really
adding up.
confused.
Yeah.
And it was a very complex plot to begin with, because it's about a guy that changes their identity and they don't know who they are. It's about 13. And anyway, I thought it can't be that with the script in hand, reading through it many times, I don't get it. It's going to be too hard for the audience.
Yeah.
So I mustered the courage to tell the big boss about it. And when we asked the script writers, initially they defended it. They said, "Oh, you're the money side of things. You don't get the artistic, blah, blah, blah." It turns out we're working odd episodes and even episodes in two separate teams. And the guy who wrote episode 9 had not read episode 8. Shocking.
Okay.
So that was a bit of a...
And they try to, okay. That's really, I'm assuming that was resolved despite the protests, that you're the
Yes,
business
thankfully
guy
it was
and what do
resolved
you
before
know?
it aired.
And then you mentioned, so I'm curious, kind of from film financing and catching odd even script teams that are not in sync with each other, what was your pathway to Revolut like?
It's a good question.
And when did data science enter the picture?
Yeah, fair enough. When I was working in film financing, I really enjoyed building the models. It was a lot of fun, but the reason why I entered this was to fix how film financing was done and help with gap financing. Historically, in film financing, you need to have a distributor, TV channel that pays for a lot of it, and I'm going to enter something way too long. Sorry. So when I was working in film financing,
Yeah.
my goal was to...
You noticed some gaps.
Yeah, exactly. And to help us gap financing. But the industry was really reluctant to change. When I was working in film financing, I realized the industry was a bit reluctant to change, and it was quite slow to set innovative film financing methodologies and systems and put them into place. A bit too slow pace for my liking after a while, and a year in, something like this, I decided to change careers. And I started working in data science at that stage, which I really enjoyed because you get to be quite creative with the type of queries you do. I was learning a new language, which was exciting. And there was a whole aspect of convincing people that data is relevant to their work. So the dashboards, the tools you're building, making sure people are using them. It was quite 360. I really enjoyed it.
And so were you doing like a data role in film financing still at this point, or was
No,
it a completely different industry?
I was doing data for Criteo, so an online advertising company.
Okay.
There's a big engine that
A lot of data.
computes exactly, so much data. It's about retargeting. So you ingest a lot of data from people's behavior online, and based
Which
on
was
that,
like a big innovation, I think, 2010, 11, 12. I was working in advertising at this, I think around the time you were you entered this picture. I remember very well.
It was huge. That's roughly when Criteo IPO'd, and we were doing really, really well. Our retargeting engine was more accurate than that of Facebook on Facebook as a publisher. And the goal is to really compute the propensity that users have to click on an ad and then purchase. And based on this and how much an advertiser is willing to pay for the compute, how much you're willing to pay for the ad space. And you had to be very, very accurate. Obviously, extremely data heavy. And I learned a lot. And it was a lot of fun. I can't remember what was the trigger for me to change and go into consulting, but there was this opportunity to be a consultant for 55, which was specialized in tech and data. And it was a really interesting role where there was a sales part, a strategy part, managing the teams as well, and working quite hands-on on projects. Quite quickly, I realized most of the missions I would sell were product missions. So I would get to build products. It was really my answer to issues. And so I decided to move to products. And initially in a slightly dysfunctional startup. After a year, I didn't find a way to get the ownership I wanted to have. It was three brothers who were founders, and they were really protective of their products. And I understand why. But I'd rather work in a company where people want me to find my space rather than me having to really fight for it. And when Revolut reached out with this YouTube video explaining that when you're a product owner at Revolut, you're the CEO of your own little startup.
So they reached out to you, like headhunting you with a YouTube video?
Yeah, well, yeah, they reached out on LinkedIn, and there were a few links. One of them was this YouTube video, and that really resonated with me. I thought, this is amazing. That's the first time I see an opportunity to get all of these things I've been looking for, to have all of the cards in hands to make a decision, and to combine the long-term vision together with the side of things and logic also, to combine the left and the right brain.
Yeah. And from, our conversations, it sounds like it's really delivered on that. You were always attracted to and went towards being data-driven, metric-driven, but also combining that with creativity. Revolut is quite infamous for being metric-obsessed. Can you talk us through, like, what does that actually look like inside your product your product org, as well as your own personal workflows?
Sure. Well, the first thing I do every single morning is check out all of my dashboards. And that's going to be true for pretty much anyone at Revolut. Every debate we have is anchored on KPI impact. When we define the scope of a team, it's not so much about the ownership of the code base. It's more so around the team KPI. To give you an example, when my first product owner role at Revolut was FinCrime product for business, and I had done a lot to improve the product itself. But in order for me to meet my KPI targets, I needed agents to use my tools better. It was in 2019 or 2020.
So these are not AI agents.
These are actual people.
Human agents.
The conversation would be very different if it were 2025 already. So I went ahead and built some dashboards myself, organized weekly calls with the team. I purchased Amazon gift vouchers out of pocket to reward the people who are doing the best versus the metrics that I thought were more relevant. It was mid-quarter, so I didn't have time to change their actual KPIs. And all of this was because I had realized that if the median of agents performed as well as the 10% most efficient agents, which is realistic with the tools we have, that's actually a methodology I use a lot to understand when it's a human versus a machine thing. It's the P50 versus P10 ratio. And
is this like a famous ratio, or is it just an observation that you noticed and adopted? Okay.
The latter. And if we were to make this happen, we'd improve my metrics by a further 40%, and then I'd get my 100% KPI achievement that I was after. And it worked. Right. So with the right incentive and gamification coupled with everything we did on product, it worked. Product alone would not have been sufficient, but through this obsession of metric, we could look beyond product. And this metric obsession helped me do it well by helping agents be obsessed with metrics as well.
You said something really interesting that I just want to double click on, which is in your team, ownership doesn't mean owning the code base. It means owning the metric. Can you dig into that a little bit more? Can you kind of expand a little bit on the ownership, like the relationship between KPI driven accountability rather than other types of accountability, as well as like how that's misperceived sometimes?
Okay. What I mean is, and all of this couldn't work without the ownership. We can be metric obsessed in the way I've tried to describe, only if you have all the cards in hands to impact the KPI, and others wouldn't. So because as a product owner, you're going to be the only one impacting the KPI, and you need to feel that it's the case. This is what you live and die by, that's not actually how it works, but this is how you're assessed first and foremost. Obviously, if there is something completely outside of your control that impacts the KPI, people are understanding, it's not a direct equation of if the KPI goes down, then life is over, and not at all. But we encourage people to think about whatever it takes to make my metrics move. Being called a product owner doesn't mean it all has to be in the code. If what it takes to move the KPI is to raise awareness and raise awareness to, it could be anything. And we want people to act as an entrepreneur and to think outside the box. Does that help? Clarify?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I think the nuance here is important, because I think from my conversations with my friends and people who've worked at Revolut, it just seems you guys have a very well-defined and specific way to look at it. And it's helpful to highlight that. Let me know if this information is correct. Revolut currently operates in 48 countries, and they have additional support in over 160 countries and regions. Is that correct? Or does that sound about right?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And then this year alone, you guys have launched, this is a really incomprehensive list, branded ATMs, like a telco service, which I got a bunch of notifications about because I have Revolut as well. AI financial assistant. It's evident that Revolut thinks globally first. Can you share a little bit about how way of thinking is dispersed across Revolut, and also a little bit about your current challenge, which is actually on the opposite side of that?
Yeah, exactly. I think at the moment, my challenge is to make sure we all think locally, because
Yeah.
we've done a really good job at becoming globally relevant very quickly.
What's driven, like, what's behind that? Is it just because it's so consistent across everything that global is considered first? And when you compound that across the whole organization, that's the outcome of it? Or is there something more to it?
I think we don't have local governance within product to begin
Okay.
with. We having every local specificity in mind from the get-go would take a lot
Yeah.
of time. I mentioned my first team was FinCrime product. My third team at Revolut was global expansion.
Okay.
And when I was doing this, I tried to build a country opening machine that would
Hmm.
be config based in a way so that
Yeah.
almost as many things as possible
So like a
are just
modular framework that can be.
exactly something that's modular. And to begin with, the setups, the configurations wouldn't
Hmm.
differ that much from one country to the next, but you'd have different account details, you'd prioritize different payment trails, you'd have obviously different languages.
Yeah.
We try to see what are the different
Like
bits
all the
that
different
differ.
dimensions that might be need consideration for any market.
Yes. And as we grew and became a better and better fit to be a primary bank for our
Hmm.
businesses, in particular, we realized all of the differences and particularities that each market has for the likes of tax payments, for instance.
Hmm.
And we're offering local tax payment methodologies across more and more countries as we go. We localize also our marketing material,
Yeah.
things like this, make sure that we talk about some of our recognizable customers across each of the
Hmm.
different geographies. They speak to the people who see it.
Yeah.
So all of these things to begin with, we had a bit of a one size fits all. That
Hmm.
MLP, we call them, so minimum lovable product.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the goal is to make it a really just best in class
Maximum lovable
product
product.
and something like that. And, and yeah, and that's what we're in the process of doing now. We're really going the extra mile to make sure it feels 100% local in every jurisdiction.
Yeah, and I can appreciate in some markets like that local nuance is a really important part of building trust and usability for people, especially in some more complicated markets. On that note, I think this is a really good segue to walk through some product stories from the vaults of your 6 years at Revolut. Tell us about a product bet that you made that almost broke things and how you saved that situation.
At one point, we were contemplating going really big into insurtech,
Hmm.
and
And was
in
there like a trigger, or it was just on the list of things that, needed to be
on the
tried?
list of things, someone has an idea, documents it a bit more,
Mhm.
and when we think, okay, it's worth putting one foot in a Revolut, typical Revolut fashion, we just
Mhm.
go for it, full speed
Yeah.
ahead, and we started really building a department from the ground up with really big ambitions. I actually
Mhm.
think that these ambitions were the ones that almost broke things because the team took the targets way too literally. Instead of coming up with the best possible plan that would achieve large scale quickly,
Mhm.
they tried to fabricate one that would reach X in 3 years with very debatable assumptions. And it anchored expectations way too high and became harder and harder to backpedal, which pushed the team to come up with more and more obscure ideas to fit within a completely unrealistic business model.
Mhm.
I think what saved it was having the courage to trash the whole plan and build something very ambitious, but realistic given the team size. For me, the lesson was ambition is essential,
Yep.
but realism and humility are what actually keep teams alive.
And so, just a follow-up question on that. What were the signs that the ambition was not right-sized for the, like, pragmatic reality of getting this launched? Like, was it the first product iteration that you pushed out was not matching what the ambition set out look like? Or, like, when do you usually start catching the cracks that this is not going in the right direction and we need to change course?
Uh,
And also,
well,
like, for any, like, product managers or teams that might be listening to this, like, maybe a point of advice for them as well.
yeah. So, well, yeah, I'll start maybe with the advice. The targets in this case were set top down by
Mhm.
people that don't have specific domain knowledge, and I think they're really aware that they don't have that knowledge. So I think they would not only have accepted pushback, they would have expected it. And my advice to POs is not to burn your wing trying to make it work, but because usually it goes together with having short-term wins to meet the target rather than having considerations for scalabilities given, well, the local specificities we were talking about. And instead to say, I understand what you need from me is an extremely ambitious plan, and I understand what sort of scale you're after. This is the best we can do. And that's the first thing. When I was brought into this after we started falling below the trends we had to hit, and I was asked to help chaperone the new department to make it work. And this is where I said, well, a lot of the assumptions we had on the uptake of the product were crazy, and they relied on having a product that would be better than products in the market for years, with an entire company dedicated to them across all of the addressable markets, and people being able to drop their current provider very quickly. So many assumptions that were
like compounding on top of each other. Yeah,
exactly. And because it wasn't realistic to begin with, they had to come up with, initially it was meant to be a plug-in to our business banking product. And quite quickly, they had to build a standalone portal so that adoption would be faster, which became less and less realistic. I think we started catching that it wasn't the right solution when these sort of crazy ideas came up.
Yeah, they're kind of doing acrobatics to like force fit into this assumption-based hypothesis. Fair enough. And then kind of similar to that one, you had another story about something that you shipped really fast and you had to completely rethink.
Yes, in a very similar context, actually. It was a payroll product. There was a push to have
a consumer-facing one, not one for the internal team.
No, exactly. Yeah, a consumer-facing one. Where it's live currently, and it's a very good product. It serves its purpose really well. But initially,
back when it was a baby.
Was that?
Back when the product was a baby.
Yeah, exactly. There was a push to have a working product in very, very little time, even by Revolut standards.
Are we talking minutes, hours,
seconds?
Days?
No, it was, we had to go from 0 to working product in less than a quarter.
Like no code to paper to working product. Okay.
Exactly. And with a small team, which was quite fast. I think in this case, what we had to build was something that would just work for one market, cutting a lot of corners. In the long run, it's not fit at all for our ambition for the product. So when there's no actual market-driven reason to go after a deadline, trying to go very quickly is obviously critical. And this is one of the competitive advantages that Revolut has. But in this case,
so when there is no market reason to go quickly, going quickly is competitive.
You still need to go quickly, but you don't need setting an artificial deadline is something that I do very frequently, but I think it needs to be done with reason. Okay. What I mean by that is when this deadline forces teams to build a proof of concept that won't scale, it can be throwaway work. So the way we now approach things is we design a target state and then we find what I call the minimum path to value.
Right. But that is related to the target.
Exactly. Yeah. That goes to with as little throwaway work as possible, that we have the shortest path to value.
Got it.
And shortest path to value en route to the target state. And when you don't have enough time, or when you think you don't, and you scrap the whole target state design phase, it's rarely a good idea. And this is what happened for us with payroll to begin with. We just built a locally specific product, and then we had to rethink how to make it happen.
Yeah. Did the InsurTech story come first or the payroll story? Which came first? Was the InsurTech story from first or the payroll story?
Payroll.
Do you think your experiences with the way that you approach launching payroll initially shaped your ability to assess what's going on with the InsurTech situation a bit more rigorously?
Yeah, well, for payroll, it was a bit of a similar story. At that stage, I was becoming a bit product fireman of sorts. When payroll was
fireman,
something like this.
Putting out fires.
When the payroll product, it was clear that it wasn't on track to hit what we were hoping would happen. Yeah. I was asked to take it back up, and the first thing I did was to say we won't actually deliver it by the 1st of December. That will deliver something very different in February. And this is how within a year we will have done something that's better. And it was actually very well received. I was terrified when I said it. I was quite
Oh,
quite early on in my Revolut days, and it was with now a founder, an ex-Revolut founder who was who could be a bit scary in meetings.
You're new and you're presenting to executives. I think in any situation that is a little bit terrifying. There's no consensus that I can find on this data, but based on various sources, there's anywhere between 46 and 100 plus Revolut alumni founded startups or early stage startups with Revolut alumni in executive positions. And I'm curious, what do you think is behind such a high proportion of alumni founded companies coming from Revolut, where much longer running, companies in the UK and elsewhere have nowhere near as much of a ratio of it stands out. And I'm curious if you think there's more to that. The founders I've spoken to have a really strong opinion about how Revolut shaped them and shaped them into an entrepreneur. But given your Revolut, what do you see are is it correlation, not causation, or what's going on here?
I think it's a bit of both. It's a good question. First, there's the appeal for Revolut, which I think resonates with the appeal for entrepreneurship. That's this ownership at the heart of everything and being a bit of a jack of all trade. So people who want to work for Revolut probably
it's part
have
of
this
your
ingrained.
it's part of the selectivity in your recruitment process.
And
it sounds like,
they're probably not afraid of, they are seeking an intense workplace, which is also something you probably need for entrepreneurship. The second part is just a selection bias. People who thrive at Revolut, so who not only succeed but enjoy it, would be employees with characteristics that make for good founders, I believe. So this deep sense of ownership we've mentioned, but also structure and being data-driven, having the ability to work with both executive type profiles, but also very technical peoples to build that muscle to zoom in and out from the very granular, the very strategic.
So the business acumen,
Exactly. And to understand the impact of the small to the big and the big to the small and vice versa. You pick that's what I call the onion layer thinking, where no matter what you talk about, you just tell a complete story that has the right level of details so that it doesn't open you up for any question. And you can go very, very detailed.
Closed onion.
Exactly. And just whatever story you tell, it doesn't introduce any question marks to the person you're talking to. And you have to pick the right layer depending on the technical literacy or of the person you're talking to.
Right. And I mean, I guess you have to also be very emotionally self-aware and socially aware to be able to kind of shift between speaking and translating things for so many different personas.
Sure. Sure. And I think the last bit where Revolut becomes a founder factory is we're exposed to success and we're building faith that we know how to do it. And we're learning so much. I mean, I've been there for 6 years. And when I look at my scope today, 6 months ago, I would have thought there's no way, there's not enough hours in a day for me to be able to handle this much. And 6 months before that, it would have been the same story and so on. We keep on growing and learning to be better and more efficient. So we get playbooks and exposure to
stress tested playbooks, I assume.
Yeah. And we also learn to navigate a complex competitive environment. And we're surrounded by people who've done things very successfully before. So we learn from each other as well a lot.
Yeah. And on that note, I noticed that a lot of the Revolut alumni, unsurprisingly, tackle adjacent problems in the fintech space, not quite what Revolut does, but insurtech, like voice AI for insurance, for example, or Paradigm.io is dealing with ETL and engineering. Of course, Revolut's a very technical company. Have you noticed any pattern in the type of founders that are coming out of Revolut and maybe some that you're in touch with? What has been your kind of point of view of seeing people kind of move on and build things?
Well, first, I really believe that product is industry agnostic. I don't think there's any. When I started, I was doing FinCrime product, then I was doing FinCrime and support, then FinCrime and support and global expansion, then payroll, and then expenses. All of these things are very different. And what you learn is a recipe to understand problems and design a solution and then ship it. These things you can apply to any type of industry or problem. That's my strong conviction. The reason why there's maybe more fintech or fintech adjacent startups can be explained by two things. The first one is people spot problems that they would like to fix in some other ways whilst working at Revolut. I have an example of someone who helped with KYB AI agents so that you can assess a
KYB?
know your
Not
business.
KYC. Know your business. Okay.
Exactly.
KYC for business.
In an AI-led manner, because they were working with me on business onboarding and they thought, maybe there's something we can do here. And another reason is funding. I know that I get approached a lot for fintech roles, and I don't think I'm a better fit for fintech than anything else, but I think you're reassuring to a board in fintech in particular if you're coming from the likes of Revolut.
Yeah, fair enough. And you mentioned for a few reasons. One is like some of the founders were on your team, people who've gone on to become founders. And the second is because of the part of Revolut you actually so happen to interface with Revolut alumni who went on to become founders. How do you stay connected with them, and what's kind of like the relationship typically between the alumni and the team?
I think my relationship to these alumni doesn't change that much whether they're a founder or not. But as product people who are using my product, because they all open a Revolut business account as soon as they open their company, we exchange ideas on how we can make things work in a different way. So there's nothing that's consciously, deliberately put in place for founders and Revolut employees to be in touch. But we just are, because we've been to a war together. It's intense when we work, and we value each other's opinion.
No, that's fair. My final question is, what's one near future prediction you'd bet your money on?
So my prediction is that in the coming year, Revolut will be the number one bank in the country that wins the Six Nations rugby tournament.
Oh, it's rugby. Sorry.
I'm a big fan of rugby, and we'll be number one in the country that wins it. And it's anyone's guess to know which country I'm backing for this.
What are the countries? What are the six? It's the UK.
England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, France, and Italy.
Oh, that's okay. And is it secret which one you're supporting?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a very well-kept secret is all I'm going to say.
Did you play rugby yourself? Okay, got it. And before we end, any final thoughts that you'd like to share either about Revolut or about like fintech in general or about rugby?
Sure. Well, we were talking about this whole left brain and right brain, the fact that I wanted to be at the same time creative and solve complex problems and having all of the cards in hands. And this is something I had struggled with in all of my workplaces where it wasn't really accepted. And Revolut was really the first place where it was not only accepted, but also recognized and valued.
Yeah.
And it's been 6 years now. And ever since I joined, at the end of every single week, every single Friday, when I look back at everything we've done, I'm proud of what we've achieved and how much we've grown every single Friday. And I think this is what makes Revolut
6 years
very
running.
specific place.
And just a final question on that. The analytical side of the brain is not surprising to hear. What are the things you noticed early on that indicated to you that the creative side was actually something that's also really valued? Was there like an incident or something someone said to you or a project maybe that you contributed to?
It's always been at the heart of my personality, and I've always tried to create things and to build things and to think outside the box and to have like original ideas, and having this outside the box thinking is I think highly regarded at Revolut.
And that was pretty apparent, like when you were still new. Pierre, thank you so much for joining. It was a very interesting conversation, kind of looking into the mindset that drives the growth that Revolut has very much deserved in the last few years.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. If you've gained value from this episode, please drop us a 5-star rating on Spotify or a like on YouTube. See you for the next one.